Welcome to chapters 32 through 35 in Turning Pro, a book club that you can find at go.fsbb.io. Now, for those who are joining us, we are jumping into Book 2, Self-Inflicted Wounds. So we've gone through the first 30 chapters or so here, and it's time for us to really look into what is it that makes the amateur an amateur. Let's jump right in. Accidental incapacitation. During the trench warfare of World War I, it was not uncommon phenomenon for soldiers to take their rifles and literally shoot themselves in the foot. The troopers would claim that the shooting was accidental. They were hoping to get sent to the hospital and thus excused from duty. They did this to avoid the carnage that was waiting for them when the order came to go, quote, over the top, i.e., to mount out of the trenches and charge across no man's land into the machine gun fire of the enemy. In the military, to deliberately injure oneself is to avoid service is called malingering. It's a court-martial offense that is punishable in some armies by death. The habits and addictions of the amateur are conscious or unconscious self-inflicted wounds. Their payoff is incapacity. When we take our M1903 Springfield and blow a hole in our foot, we no longer have to face the real fight of our lives, which is to become who we are and to realize our destiny and our calling. You know, I don't want to inject too much of my color commentary into this, but I'll tell you, I have been part of several different situations of an addict, a real addict. Oh, they're called interventions. I've been part of 2 interventions. That's what they're called. And I will tell you, in those 2 experiences, not the experiences, the intervention themselves. The interventions themselves went well. But leading up to the intervention, months, years, weeks, long time, the suffering was great. And the reason is exactly this. Incapacitation. Like, no one wants to face their fears. No one wants to really have to change, right? Because anesthetizing yourself, knocking yourself out, getting on the drugs and the booze, right? Shooting yourself in the foot. It's called malingering. That's what so much of us do. So much of us are so good at self-sabotage. It's confounding to me. Like, that is just not built into any of my mental models or DNA. And so when I see self-sabotage, it is one of those things that I truly cannot fully understand. The definition of an amateur. The amateur is young and dumb. He's innocent. He's good-hearted. He's well-intentioned. The amateur is brave. He's inventive and resourceful. He's willing to take a chance. Like Luke Skywalker, the amateur harbors noble aspirations. He has dreams. He seeks liberation and enlightenment. And he's willing, he hopes, to pay the price. The amateur is not evil or crazy. He's not deluded. He's not demented. The amateur is trying to learn. The amateur is you and me. What exactly is the amateur? How does the amateur view himself and the world? What qualities characterize the amateur? First up, the amateur is terrified. Fear is the primary color of the amateur's interior world. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of looking foolish, fear of the underachieving, and fear of overachieving, fear of poverty, fear of loneliness, fear of death. But mostly what we all fear as amateurs is being excluded from the tribe, i.e. the gang, the posse, mother and father, family, nation, race, religion. The amateur fears that if he turns pro and lives out his calling, he will have to live up to who he really is and what he is truly capable of. The amateur is terrified that if the tribe should discover who he really is, he will be kicked out into the cold and die. The professional, by the way, is just as terrified as the amateur. In fact, the professional may be more terrified because she is more acutely conscious of herself and of her interior universe. The difference, and we're going to talk about this in Book 3, lies in the way that the professional acts in the face of fear. So, we're going to be getting into this idea of fear and what the amateur feels and fears. And so very simply the question for today's book club is, what is a real fear that you've had in the past that has stopped you from action? And if you can share, how did you overcome it? You'll see in the community at go.fsbb.io.